So the main character, Servant, she has a tight grip on the harem. She's the one who controls it. She's the one who keeps them all in line and don't have any of them misbehaving. She will be the one who, punishes them if they misbehave or they go against the emperor. Like, she is very much a strong-willed woman, a very scary woman. But somehow she has not figured out the affair between the personal guard and the instrumental pleasure slave. She hasn't figured that out. But yes, she will punish anyone who she thinks will do the main character wrong. And typically, the eunuch gets into her head, so she punishes the male lead. And she even puts the male lead in the main character's bed because she misunderstands what the main character meant. And so she brought the male lead to his bed, which she does a lot of that. She will mistake what the main character means and will put a pleasure slave in his bed. He's like, no, 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 that's not what I meant. Like, honey, calm down. Like, girl gets fantasies in her head. She mistakes whatever the main character says and she gets a whole fantasy in her head and she runs with it, which is what I love about her. She just runs with whatever fantasy she has. But she did that and the main character freaks. So he has to get into her head and be like, hey, so I didn't bring him into my harem to be a pleasure slave or be one of my lovers. No, I brought him in so we can get more grip and control over his kingdom. Like, we can go back and fight once he becomes my, partner in crime. We can get more control because, his father didn't complete his mission over the country. He fought, won a bit of a battle, and then ran off with their prince after destroying parts of it. So the main character gets into her head, hey, we have hold of him. Why not get him to our side and have that dealt with? And she's like, oh, I see what you mean. I get what you mean. And then she leaves them be. But then later misunderstands and thinks they did sleep with each other, but the main character bottom because the original host was a top who went after stereotypical bottoms. But now she thinks he switched his position, is now the bottom in the relationship, and thinks that he was forced to bond because the male lead is a stereotypical damn-nearing top type. And so yes, she misunderstands, especially since the male lead was very physical with the main character. They struggled, they fought each other, typically mostly the male lead. And this is also when the main character tells the male lead that he is a transmurgator, that he is not the original host, that he's not the original emperor, that he had once died and then jumped into the body. That's how he knew that the token was the male lead's mother's token. That he can't tell male lead everything right now. And at first, the male lead doesn't believe him, but later the male lead does, which I absolutely love the fact that the main character is outright about it. He's like, yeah, I'm not who I am. Like, I am somebody else. I am not the original host. He doesn't continue pretending not to be who he is. It's typically not in front of the male lead, like in Scum Saving System, where the main character still continues in front of the male lead on he is the original host when he's not. But in this, he's outright with his man. He's like, I am not the person who did all these horrible things to you. I am not the son of the person who did all these terrible. I just have the face of this person, but I am not them. So the main character and male lead are not just misunderstood by his servant on their relationship and their positions in their relationships. Other people will sooner or later misunderstand it because the main character snatches the male leads up, escapes the palace, goes to the memorial temple where his ancestors are kept, and he snatches back the dagger that the male lead's father used to kill himself when the original host, his father, attacked their kingdom. Yes, he got it back because his father kept it as a war trophy and had it set by his memorial. And the main character's like, yeah, no, this belongs to my man. And he gives it back to the male lead because in the original story, the male lead entered the memorial temple once he took over the kingdom and burned it to ashes because he was so furious at the original host's father. And the main character's like, yeah, I'm not going to have this a repeat. So he hands over the dagger that belonged to the male lead's father once back to the male lead. So yes, he's going around being like, here's the stuff that belonged to your parents once back in your hands. And the male lead's like, what can I do to repay you? And he's like, no, this is basically repaying you for what you've done. And this was yours. It would rightfully belong to you anyways. But I mean, why people misunderstood this is because everyone freaked when they realized the emperor was missing. Because again, he's the emperor. And so when they realize, oh, where is he? Where is he? They all start looking for him. And once he returns, because when they were heading back, the main character got injured and he was all ruffled up. And so when they return back with the main character on the male lead's back, they're all like, oh my god, did they do that? Did they have a little too much fun? And the main character confirms it. So he confirms their misunderstanding. So I freaking love this story. Everyone just misunderstanding what's going on between the male lead and the main character always has me laughing. The ex-favored pleasure slave is not pleased with this whole situation. They weren't even wanting to be a pleasure slave from the get-go because they're not seen as a position as a courtesan or a concubine. They're basically treated nothing unless they don't have the emperor's favor. So yes, he's just doomed. He was originally supposed to be an official, climb the ranks, but once the original hosts had sought their eyes on him, he was stripped of everything and made into a pleasure slave and was made to be precocious, sweet, submissive, when in actuality, he was a self-righteous man that wanted to work himself to a higher position, and now that was all taken from him. And he was the one in the original story that had betrayed the original host, which again is understandable why he betrayed the original host. I mean, he watched all his fellow pleasure slaves be killed, and he had been stripped of his career and made into a pleasure slave that is basically a nothing career. It's a nothing position. Nothing comes from it except being rolled around in the sheets by the emperor. So yeah, he is not happy in his situation. And once he catches the instrumental pleasure slave and the personal guard's relationship, he goes to the instrumental pleasure slave and tells him, hey, you get into the male lead's bed. Basically, you drug him, put him to sleep, get into his bed, and make sure the emperor sees it. Yes, you two will be killed, but your husband will be safe and sound. So the instrumental pleasure slave agrees to this, does it. The main character does catch them. Obviously, he has his personal guard with him and his servant with him. The servant is furious and ready to, kill them, and the personal guard is literally heartbroken. Luckily, the main character believes in his man and tells him, hey, back off, I got this, I will handle it. He sends the instrumental pleasure slave off, talks with the male lead, then hunts down the personal guard, tells the personal guard that he's figured everything out, he knows the relationship, there's nothing going on between the instrumental pleasure slave and the male lead. They go to the pleasure slave, and the pleasure slave had tried killing himself. Luckily, the main character knew CPR and was able to save the dude's life. And then he sends them off with money, being like, you both are fired for this, but I'm not going to kill you guys. That's ridiculous and stupid. So here's a bunch of money. Go to this location, live out your guys' life, work as merchants, just live your guys' lives and be happy. Like, this dude is just being Cupid, and I love the main character for that. He didn't just play Cupid with the pleasure slave and the personal guard. He tries playing Cupid with the male lead and his sister, but every single time he tries playing Cupid with him, it never works out for him. He can't get them to romance each other. Nothing he does. He tries talking to his sister, being like, oh, do you want me to get you a personal guard, a caretaker, someone to talk with you when I'm not around? And she's like, no. But later she brings a female shoulder and is like, hey, I want her as my personal guard. And he's like, they was supposed to be the male lead. The person who's supposed to stay by your side is the male lead. I'm supposed to try to get you romance. And the day he caught the instrumental pleasure slave and the male lead with each other was the day he was trying to take the male lead to be introduced to his sister and tried to set them up, but ended up being sidelined. Like, this man cannot get his sister and the male lead together. I'm like, honey, the moment you enter the book, you spiraled that storyline far away. Like, that story didn't even fully exist in the original book. It's not going to exist here.